Shocking revelation. China's population is only 800 million. In a densely populated country with agricultural land, it may not be sufficient, and cereal production often decreases due to drought, floods, insect infestations, and other natural disasters. This makes the Chinese people's fear of famine particularly strong. They are grateful to the Chinese government for feeding over 1 billion people. They blindly believe in the fanciful theory that without the CCP, the densely populated country would soon plunge into chaos. When China's position as the world's most populous country was suddenly challenged, people suddenly realized that this country even had fake population data. Is there anything that is not fake in this country? What is the actual population of China? Let's find out in this program. China has long been globally renowned for its fake products, including counterfeit goods, fake medicines, and counterfeit food. Recently, there is evidence indicating that the figure of over 1.4 billion people is also fabricated. At the beginning of 2024, the National Bureau of Statistics of China officially announced the country's population at the end of 2023 reached a total of 1.49 billion people, a decrease of 2.8 million compared to the end of the previous year. In recent years, China has been surpassed by India as the most populous country in the world. However, with the distinction of being the world's second most populous nation, this global powerhouse still enjoys many advantages. China has an endless labor force essential for factories worldwide. It attracts a vast market for foreign entrepreneurs with a considerable number of middle-class consumer groups, enviable to others. When applying for World Bank loans, China, with its low per capita income, is easily approved, especially during conflicts. Mobilizing a large military force becomes easier, making many countries wary. Maintaining this title is extremely crucial. The CCP has too many lies to cover up, so new fabricated stories need to be woven from the 80 million victims killed by the CCP, including those who died of starvation during the 3 years of natural disasters, the Great Leap Forward, the anti-rightist movement, the Cultural Revolution, the persecution of Falun Gong practitioners, the suppression of people in Xinjiang and Tibet today, or the hundreds of millions of newborns who died due to the one-child policy. Are they all accounted for in this population data? Disasters. China accounts for up to 6 disasters. People will continue to question, from the earthquake in Tangshan 40 years ago to the earthquake in Wuhan in 2008, from Typhoon Nina in 1975 to the dam collapse incident in Banqiao, Henan province in the same year, to the floods in Zhengzhou and the current COVID-19 pandemic. One wonders how many people have died in China. 400 million people died from the pandemic. China is known to be the origin and the most severe outbreak site of the world's deadliest pandemic, which has lasted for 4 years. While Beijing attempts to conceal the data and declares victory over the pandemic, hospitals nationwide remain overwhelmed with infected individuals, crematoriums operate 24/7 and still take a year to cremate all the bodies, and mass graves proliferate like mushrooms in rural areas, depicting scenes of mourning and death. Starting from the fourth quarter of 2022, to mask the death toll, the Chinese Ministry of Civil Affairs stopped releasing the number of cremated bodies. The published numbers for the first 3 quarters of 2022 were 1.7006 million people, 3.212 million people, and 4.776 million people, indicating a rapid increase in the trend. In January 2023, on the Minhui, Oregon website, to investigate the actual number of deaths from the pandemic, author Allen presented an analysis based on funeral service industry data published by the Chinese Ministry of Civil Affairs. Crematories vary, requiring different durations ranging from 20 minutes to over 60 minutes per body. Based on the analysis, it can be speculated that if, for example, each crematorium operates 8 hours per day, the total number of deaths from 2020 to 2022 would be around 209 million. This figure would change to approximately 628 million if we assume each crematorium operates 24 hours a day. In summary, the number of deaths in China during the 3 years of the COVID-19 pandemic could range from 209 to 628 million based on these calculations. Due to the length of this analysis and the program's time constraints, we will pin detailed discussions in the comments for viewer to analyze. Wang Yi, a Chinese political commentator, told NTD TV on January 19 that due to the enormous number of deaths in China during the pandemic, the CCP needs to slowly digest it. Therefore, they only report one figure each year, indicating how many million people died annually, to guide people into their thinking framework and cover up the massive death toll. Wu Jialong, a comprehensive economist from Taiwan, also told Epoch Times internal demographic information from the CCP shows a population of only 800 million to 1 billion people, so they are gradually compensating for the declining population data. Mr. Li Hongzhi, founder of the spiritual practice Falun Gong, told the Epoch Times on Dog 26 that the virus is directed at the CCP along with those who blindly follow the party, defend it, and give their lives to it. In January, Mr. Li said that more than 400 million people in China had died of COVID-19 and that the party has been covering up the true situation of the pandemic since it broke out more than 3 years ago. Japanese study on salt consumption estimates China's population reduced to 800 million. Dr. C. Tien, head professor at the Aiken Business School, University of South Carolina, shared valuable information. Japanese researchers, based on salt consumption, estimate a significant decrease in China's population over the past 10 years, currently standing at around 800 million. Dr. Xia acknowledges the meticulous and rigorous nature of Japanese research on China, widely recognized for its accuracy. He recalls a past remarkable story when Japanese researchers studied China's Daking oil field, discovered in September 1959. Daking is China's largest oil field and one of the top 10 in the world. During the study of Daking's location, reserves, and extraction rates, the Japanese utilized photos of Wang Jingxi, also known as the Iron Man, published in CCP newspapers at that time. Information about the oil field was strictly classified by the CCP. However, based solely on the image of Mr. Wang Jingxi's coat, the Japanese deduced that the oil field was located in an area with high cold temperatures. Using images of oil production equipment to infer annual production and equipment codes, they then researched suitable devices for drilling and oil production at high altitudes. Consequently, in subsequent bidding processes, Japanese equipment won the bid for best meeting the northeastern region's environmental conditions and China's demands. Applying this analytical approach, the use of salt consumption to estimate China's population does not seem entirely illogical. While figures related to the production and business of table salt can be easily obtained, the question remains whether individual salt consumption itself is a fixed and unchanging number. In 2019, researchers from Queen Mary University of London published a study revealing that for the past 40 years, Chinese people have had the highest salt consumption globally. Each adult in China consumes over 10 grams of salt daily, surpassing the recommended amount by the International Nutrition Organization. In the 1980s, Chinese salt consumption was as high as 12.8 grams per day. By extrapolating a decrease in the total salt consumption to infer a declining population, there may be gaps in the reasoning. For instance, Chinese people are gradually altering their taste preferences. However, beyond salt usage figures, finding other suitable consumables to replace and indirectly deduce population changes proves challenging. It is often said that every day when housewives begin their tasks, there are 7 essential items: firewood, rice, oil, salt, soy sauce, vinegar, and tea. Estimating consumption based on fuels such as coal, gas, or electricity becomes more challenging as the energy consumption structure of the population shifts from coal to gas or electricity. Trying to gauge consumption from rice or white flour is also unreliable, as people nowadays consume more meat and less starch. Estimating from consumables like firewood, soy sauce, tea, etc. is also impractical as human lifestyles have changed significantly. Therefore, in the end, it seems that salt is a more reliable metric, despite its aforementioned drawbacks. The figure of around 800 million Chinese people proposed by the Japanese researchers does not appear entirely unfounded. What about other speculations? The number of citizens' identity cards from the Ministry of Public Security indicates that China now has only 960 million people. In December 2021, Mr. Yi Fengzhan, a renowned international demographer, estimated that China's population in 2020 was about 1.28 billion, not 1.41 billion as announced by the Chinese government. In late June 2022, the National Personal Information Database of the Shanghai Public Security Bureau was hacked by a hacker named China Dan. Subsequently, this hacker offered to sell 970 million personal data of Chinese people on the Breach Forum's online forum. This data included information such as names, birth dates, addresses, photos, phone numbers, identification documents, etc. In 2021, internal data from the Chinese Ministry of Public Security showed that the country had only about 780 million citizens' identity cards. According to publicly available data from the National Population Census leading group of the National Bureau of Statistics of China in 2020, the population over 16 years old in China accounted for about 81%. According to the National Bureau of Statistics of China, those under 16 are not required to register for a card, while those over 16 must have a citizen identity card. Assuming that those under 16 do not have an ID card, based on this ratio, it can be inferred that the total population of the entire country is 960 million, taking 780 million and dividing it by 81%, a figure that aligns quite accurately with the leaked population data from the Shanghai Municipal Public Security Bureau. 900 million travel journeys vanished during the 2023 Lunar New Year. Where did they go? Spring migration refers to the mass migration back to hometowns during the Chinese Lunar New Year, a period of extremely high travel volume in China lasting for 40 days during the Lunar New Year festival. Since the outbreak of COVID at the end of 2019, 2023 is the first year that the Chinese government lifted all lockdowns and travel restrictions. In March 2023, the Chinese Ministry of Transport announced that there were 4.7033 billion travel journeys during the 2023 spring migration. The travel volume during the spring migration 2019 was 5.657 billion journeys. It can be estimated that the number of travel journeys during the 2023 Lunar New Year decreased by 924 million compared to 2019. Ms. Zhang Changming stated in an interview with the Epoch Times on March 6 that this decline is a strong indicator that the population of China has decreased significantly. Everyone was looking forward to celebrating the Lunar New Year with their families, especially after 3 years of strict zero-COVID lockdowns and controls. Therefore, within the 40 days of the spring migration, even during a serious epidemic, the likelihood of people choosing not to travel was extremely low. Based on the spring migration data published in 2019, Mr. Zhang calculated that during the 40 days before and after the Lunar New Year, the average number of travels per person in China was 2.4 times. This average figure was computed by dividing the total number of trips published in 2019, which is 2.98 billion, by the national population under 64 years old published at the end of 2018, which is 1.23 billion. The calculation took into account reasonable social behaviors at that time and objectively excluded individuals with low travel rates. She believes that, based on the average travel frequency of 2.4 times per person, the reduction of 924 million travel journeys during the 2023 Lunar New Year indicates that from 2019 to 2023, the population of China could have decreased by up to 385 million people, 924 million divided by 2.4. Normally, population changes take a long time. If the population decreases significantly in just 3 to 4 years, most of it is due to sudden events, and the sudden event from 2019 to 2023 is the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, she said. Although the Chinese government has concealed the actual data on the number of deaths, this data is gradually being reflected in reality. The population decline will reduce market demand, including all aspects such as clothing, food, housing, and transportation. The travel figures during the 2023 Lunar New Year are a clue. Population growth negative consecutively. On January 17, 2024, China's National Bureau of Statistics officially announced that the number of births in 2023 was 9.2 million, with a birth rate of 6.39%. The death numbers in 2019 were 12,282,983 people. The number of deaths was 11.1 million, with a death rate of 7.87%. The natural population growth rate was -1.48%. Due to the strict one-child policy implemented by the Chinese government from 1980 to 2015 and rapid urbanization during this period, China's birth rate has rapidly declined over decades, similar to Japan and South Korea during their economic boom. A large portion of the population migrated from rural areas to cities, and the cost of living in urban areas became higher. Yenju, a demographer at the University of Michigan, told Reuters, "As we have observed many times in other countries with low birth rates, reversing declining birth rates can be challenging." China relaxed its one-child policy in 2016, allowing families to have 2 children. By 2021, they further relaxed it to allow families to have up to 3 children to encourage childbirth. The Chinese government continuously issued a series of incentives for couples and small families, such as cash allowances, tax reductions, and even discounts on home purchases. However, this policy cannot change a fundamental reality. Many young people in China do not want to have children. Apart from low income and precarious jobs, the cost of living is increasing. Additionally, more women are joining the workforce and seeking higher education. Demographers also blame gender discrimination and other factors for hindering reproductive capabilities in China. Marriage is considered a leading indicator of reproductive ability, as most single women do not receive child-rearing subsidies. Moreover, the COVID-19 pandemic, which has been ongoing for over 3 years, has exacerbated China's low birth rate. In 2022, China's average age reached 39 years, surpassing the US threshold of 38.1 years. Meanwhile, India's average age is only 28.2 years, 10 years younger than China. Long-term projections by United Nations experts suggest that China's population will decrease by 109 million people by 2050, more than 3 times the forecast in 2019. It is estimated that by 2035, China's population over 60 years old will exceed 400 million, equivalent to the population of the United States. This could deplete China's retirement system resources. Population data is core information about the internal affairs and strength of a nation. In any country worldwide, it seems unlikely for fraud to occur in a population census. Only in China, under the rule of the CCP, is the population data not trustworthy. But even if the Chinese government genuinely wants to accurately determine the population figures, can they achieve it? This cannot be done because the population survey must be conducted by an independent, honest, and nationwide organization and should not be subject to government constraints at any level. Only then can accurate figures be obtained. However, this cannot be achieved in China. From the central to the local level, driven by their own interests and positions, any government authority would report inaccurately, and report, not report, and conceal population data from different regions. That is why we cannot expect the CCP to one day speak the truth, and we can only speculate based on well-founded suspicions. Previously, people lamented the fragility of life, emphasizing the need to cherish it. However, in the current regime of the CCP, even a statistical figure about the deaths of Chinese citizens is of no concern to them, and they don't bother recording it. Many lament the pitiable fate of the Chinese people, as the CCP regards its citizens as objects, discarding them when surplus and seeking to compensate when lacking. The dignified honor of a life has been ruthlessly trampled upon without mercy. We value your thoughts and opinions on today's topic, so don't forget to leave a comment in the section below. Share your insights and join the discussion. If you want to stay updated with more captivating topics from Secret in China, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more intriguing content. Thank you for tuning in.